Okay, so mates, we have so much to talk about on this Thursday. Thank you so much for including yourself in on this conversation, including a report that uncovers major wrongdoing inside the LAPD and the Oklahoma lawmaker that's being censored. Welcome to FOXSOUL's Black Report. I'm Courtney Hicks.
And I'm Nicolai Corte. Plus, what America has to say about the word woke and the West African chef that's being awarded a Michelin award. They're the stories that impact our people.
It's our news, our views, and our voice. So let's get into today's top conversation as the U.S. Justice Department is finally releasing their findings following an investigation that was prompted by the killing of Breonna Taylor that happened back in 2020. Now, the department says the Louisville, Kentucky police force routinely discriminates against Black residents. The Attorney General and Breonna Taylor's mother both spoke following the release of this report.
Most Metro employees and LMPD officers are dedicated public servants who work hard to promote public safety. But Louisville Metro and LMPD have failed to ensure that all employees uphold the constitutional and statutory rights of the people of Louisville. Some have videotaped themselves throwing drinks at pedestrians from their cars, insulted people with disabilities, and called Black people monkeys, animal, and boy. This conduct is unacceptable. It is heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking to know that everything you've been saying from day one has to be said again through this manner, you know. That it took this to even have somebody look into this department. Heartbreak all over again, because I knew that to begin with. I said that from the very beginning. We've asked that question 100 times over and over for no one to ever give you a direct answer.
And now, due to this, the DOJ is now looking at Memphis police for the same reason. The agency says it will look into the department's policies on use of force and de-escalation after the deadly beating of Tyree Nichols. In a separate effort, the DOJ will examine the use of specialized units around the country. The officers in Memphis were a part of one unit that was created to reduce tensions in communities. That group was disbanded after Nichols' death.
Yeah, I'm glad the DOJ has and sounds like will continue to step in and make a concerted effort to, help these local departments move and shift this culture along. I don't know how good of a job they've done with trying to, pun intended, self-police and or self-examine and then, redirect because these cases continue to surmount. We continue to hear about that blue culture, wreaking havoc on these communities. So I think it's going to take the DOJ to press down, and it's going to take these local municipalities, these local departments to want to get right, get better, and do better and shift this blue culture.
Yeah, and what a difference an attorney general can make. We know that before Merrick Garland became the head of the Department of Justice, we know that his predecessors were not about this life. They were not about
they weren't interested.
Organizing consent decrees. They were not about holding police departments accountable in the same way. And so shout out to Merrick Garland in terms of his leadership at DOJ. I'm sure it hasn't been easy. Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark for civil rights, has also played a pretty significant role in really reforming these police departments department by department. And so we'll continue to keep our eye on this, but this is no small thing. There were over 36 recommendations that were made in terms of reforms to the Louisville Police Department. And when you look at what they were doing, some of the practices that they were engaged in, it reminded me of Ferguson and what they were doing. And so, for everybody out there that's acting like, what do you mean police reform? The police are doing a good job. Well, in Louisville, they were violating people's civil rights.
Yeah, genuine change. These departments need to mean it. All right, a special counsel appointed by the LA Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission has issued an explosive report on deputy gangs inside the Sheriff's Department, calling them a cancer that must be excised. The report calls on Sheriff Robert Luna to adopt a policy that prohibits deputies from participating in deputy gangs and make it clear that this is a top priority, and he should state his intention to make this happen immediately. Now, the report also identifies at least half a dozen active gangs and cliques and names them, which include the executioners, the banditos, the regulators, the Spartans, the gladiators, the cowboys, and the reapers.
And here to discuss the report and police reform across the country is retired LAPD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey. Thanks so much for joining us here on Fox Soul's Black Report.
Thanks for having me.
So, Sergeant Dorsey, share with us, what's your response to this damning report on the LA County Sheriff?
Well, this is nothing new, and I've certainly been speaking on this issue for several years with Sheriff Alex Villanueva at the head of that agency, and that's part and parcel, I believe, as to why he was not reelected. For folks who think their vote doesn't matter, it absolutely does. And so, my concern has always been, you've got high-ranking officials. At one point, the undersheriff, Paul Tanaka, was an admitted Viking. I mean, he's serving time right now in federal prison with a former sheriff, Lee Baca. So this is nothing new. This has been going around on the Sheriff's Department reportedly for over 50 years. And while they acknowledge the existence of half a dozen, it's purported that there are really about 17 different internal gangs where they go out and they get inked up when they put hands on somebody and beat them, when they get involved in a use of force. There's deputies allegedly who go out and try to provoke an incident where they can get into a shooting so they can get inked. And so my concern was always, is Sheriff Villanueva an executioner? We need to have somebody pull up these deputies' pants leg and see what's going on with these inkings that they have, to see who's actually involved and what really are they going to do. I mean, Luna says he's going to look into it. Okay, and then what?
Yeah, absolutely terrifying. You just mentioned the new sheriff that's been elected, Robert Luna. Do you think he's up for the challenge of, reprogramming and redirecting this department?
I hope he can make some substantive change, but I'm a realist. This has been going on in that department for decades, and it's institutionalized, it's systemic, and when you've got chiefs of staff, when you've got an undersheriff or two who's an admitted, known gangster, how deep is that in that organization? And are you really going to be able to excise those officers? Because listen, it's reported that these deputies are so-called shot callers, like you hear references in prison. They're the ones who determine who work specialized units, who get the overtime assignments. And so I'm not sure if he's really going to be able to do this single-handedly.
And considering that the LA County Sheriff is one of the largest local law enforcement agencies in the country, when we look at this report and the Department of Justice report on the Louisville Police Department, is this the beginning of the change that many protesters, like Black Lives Matter activists, have been marching for?
I don't say no to any of the changes, and understand you need to pay attention to the verbiage that's used. Merrick Garland, I appreciate his effort. He's making a recommendation. And so I don't know if there are any teeth behind that recommendation. Police chiefs have total autonomy in terms of how they comport themselves and how they run their fiefdoms, their police departments, and understanding that every police chief serves at the pleasure of an elected mayor. And so they're giving us a lot of lip service right now. But listen, they've disbanded units and reconstituted them. The Vipers gave them a different name. They've taken over in Memphis officers out of the Scorpion unit, disbanded it, and put them where? In patrol. It's not like these officers aren't still out there working patrol, dealing with people day in and day out. And so my concern is, what really are they going to do? And oh, by the way, we know that these officers, some of them are proven and demonstrated liars. They lied on affidavits to get search warrants, particularly in the case of Breonna Taylor. These are compromised officers. Once they're shown to be a liar, everything that they've touched is tainted. So what is a district attorney going to do across these 18,000 police departments where we have people serving time right now in jail on a lie that was put forth by a compromised officer?
Yeah, you just mentioned a lot of these units where a lot of the complaints and the mistreatment stem from across the country. What do you think, more specifically, these units, how can these units be redirected, or do they need to continue to be disbanded from being so reckless? Is it a blue culture? Is it a lack of training? Your thoughts on that?
Well, it's certainly part of the culture, and that can be whether you're in a specialized unit or if you're just working patrol, as I did for 20 years on LAPD. I worked in a specialized unit, South Bureau Crash, our gang detail. And so I understand how these units work, and I understand the mindset on some of the officers that are there. And that's why it's so important to have field supervisors like myself, a sergeant, who's out there, whether you're in patrol or on a specialized unit. We know that the Scorpions were out there unsupervised, and these were almost officers who were just a click above a probationer. So you need patrol sergeants out there rolling on these calls, monitoring, evaluating their officers in the field to make sure that they're dealing with the community in a way that's appropriate. And when you find officers are not, then there should be swift and substantive administrative action. We don't need a federal national registry. We don't need a list. These agencies know who the bad actors are. You think Derek Chauvin wasn't on a list with 20 plus personnel complaints? 3 of the Memphis 5 had personnel complaints. CJ Davis knew absolutely who these people were, yet she allowed them to remain on that Scorpion unit and ignored complaints that were coming in from the community. And so we've got to roll our sleeves up as a community, get involved and get engaged and demand substantive change, not lip service, not a list, not a recommendation, but real change. Get these bad doers off of those police departments, decertify them so they don't get to resign and move to another agency.
Yeah.
Well, we really want to thank you, and we want to invite you to come back again. Police reform continues to be in the national headlines. We know that mayors play an outsized role in advancing police reform, as do presidents and Congress. And so, please come back again to help us make sense out of what's happening, what could happen, and what's not happening.
Yeah, and from sister to sister, you look amazing. I just want to throw that in there on Women's History Month. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, I mean, really important conversation.
It makes you wonder if any of these units, in regards to why they were designed in the first place, if any of these units across the country have ever worked. Have there been any units that haven't been corrupt? Have there been any units that have, played it, by the law and by policy? It just makes you wonder, does that even exist based upon what they were formed to do? I
mean, I think a big part of the debate is around checks and balances, right? We cannot expect the police to police themselves. And, that was a question that was put to voters in LA County, where they have given the LA County Board of Supervisors the power to be able to fire sheriffs, duly elected elected officials. And so that's a pretty big deal, right? Yeah. But I think what people really want are checks and balances, more oversight over police departments, right? And when police departments are found to be corrupt, when they have folks that are not adhering to policy, then what? And there are a lot of activists out there that are not confident that those changes are happening fast enough. And that's why a lot of them are saying, we've got to reimagine policing from top to bottom. Well, moving along, a Black professor in Illinois is making headlines after she says Black people should get special bereavement leave and counseling services in order to deal with issues relating to systemic racism. Dr. Angel Jones, who teaches at Southern Illinois University, argued that Black teachers ought to be eligible for Black bereavement leave because the grief process for the community in the wake of public tragedy can be tough. The professor said that she recently burst into tears when she had to email her students in the wake of Tyree Nichols' death, and says that it was impossible to ignore her own feelings and that she had cried numerous times sending similar emails in the past.
I understand her requests, and I think, we've been reading stories where statistics show that, those stressors, put a toll on our lives and our day-to-day existence. I don't know. I think it's a bit far-fetched to get others to see, especially those who are guilty of maybe creating those stressors for Black folks. I think in moments like she spoke on, you just have to take the moment. You have to own the moment. I was doing evening news in the midst of all of the 2020 election and the nonsense, and then thereafter, you had COVID hit, and then you had Brianna, you had the situation in Minneapolis, you had Arbery, and I was a human first in that moment, and so there was a little bit more emotion in those evening newscasts that maybe before, to let folks know that I'm just not a news anchor. I'm also a Black woman. I'm also a sister and a niece, and this has affected me. So I just think you have to steal those moments when you can, and claim them for yourself, and let people know that you are human.
Yeah,
and that this is taking a toll on you.
Look, we all need mental health days. We all need those days to sort of, get quiet and recenter ourselves. And sometimes weekends aren't enough.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Clayton County in Georgia. Where 2 people are in custody after a man complained about his prostitute to officers. Check this story. Police say that Jonathan Reynolds, Lord, told officers that he had given a woman $40 to do what they do. Now, according to Reynolds, the woman disappeared after taking his money, so my man went to the cops. After looking through surveillance video, police were able to locate the woman. When questioned, Renee Williams, who you just saw there, admitted to taking the money and leaving. Both were taken into custody. That's kind of what happens when you engage in illegal activity.
For $40?
You could probably imagine what $40.
Maybe she thought it was a deposit. Maybe $40 was a deposit.
I doubt that.
Maybe it was incomplete payment.
I doubt that. She just
maybe insufficient funds.
She just She just tried to hit a lick and it didn't work. All right, let's keep going.
More history is being made over at ESPN as it's the second straight year the network has commentated for the NBA game led by an all-female broadcast crew, and there's a few Black queens in the lineup. This year's all-female broadcast was held on International Women's Day, yay! The women conducted pre-game panels, in-game commentating, and post-game reactions for the Dallas Mavericks versus the New Orleans Pelicans game. Now, the Black journalists and anchors included in the coverage were Malika Andrews, Candace Parker-Cheney, Okowiecki, and Monica McNutt.
Yeah, I love these girls. I see them often, throughout the season, and they are bright. They are knowledgeable. Some of them, of course, are former players, have been up and down the court, which gives them an even deeper insight. And then on top of that, they're unapologetically feminine. That the hair, whether it be curl or straight, braids, and they're beautiful. And you see all of that in that full package. And it's great to see a whole new generation of sportscasters, female sportscasters, take the reins and pull us through this industry.
It really is. It really is. I mean, I remember a time where, we didn't see a lot of female commentators
it was just
in
Pam
sports.
Oliver.
I mean, it was a big deal when Robin Roberts came out of that world and parlayed that into, an incredible career on Good Morning America. But, her story was so uncommon, right? And so to see so many other women, particularly Black women, that are really owning the space, as anchors in that space and commentators, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. All right, still ahead, RuPaul throwing shade.
That's right.
You don't say.
We'll tell you what he has to say and to who after we return. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report. Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. Now off to Oklahoma, where Republicans formally censured their non-binary Democratic colleague this week after state troopers said that the lawmaker blocked them from questioning a transgender rights activist accused of assaulting a police officer during a protest over anti-trans legislation.
Now, the party line vote means Representative Maury Turner, who uses they/them pronouns, will be removed from all committee assignments unless the second-term lawmakers issue a formal apology. Now, this is including to the Highway Patrol, which provides security at the Capitol complex. Turner, the first openly non-binary and Muslim person elected to the legislature there in Oklahoma, said earlier this week that won't happen as Republicans continue to work to strip away the rights of trans people.
Yeah, this is pretty terrible that because the representative, was trying to basically shield this activist, create a safe space for this activist in their office. You have law enforcement that said, no, that was wrong. And, that House Speaker in Oklahoma is on their side, willing to strip her of committee assignments. It's a pretty extreme reaction to somebody that's just trying to create a safe space in their office, especially given that, there have been a number of pieces of legislation in Oklahoma targeting the trans community in terms of gender affirming care. And, we've seen how Republican controlled state legislatures across the country are going after drag shows, for example. And so, this was an elected official trying to protect somebody, and, she may have her assignment stripped from her, but she is they are standing their ground.
Yeah, the pushback on the protection, it borderlines hate to me. Like, you are just, so against what that person had a right to speak on. People are who they are, and whether you agree or disagree with who they choose to be, they have a right to be that. And, for these lawmakers to go to the extent that they've gone to, that directs me, and I'm leaning more towards just hate.
Yeah.
Just hate.
Yeah. And everybody has a right.
That's unfortunate.
And everybody has
it's evil.
You're right. And everybody has a right to feel safe, right? And that's what the representative was responding to.
Right.
This trans activist did not feel safe at the Capitol, and is among a number of activists that don't feel safe at the Capitol. And this representative knows something about not feeling like they belong or feel safe because, as we mentioned, they are non-binary. They are also Muslim.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, this week, ESPN commentator Sage Steele condemned a recent decision by a Minnesota state court to force USA Powerlifting to permit male athletes who identify as transgender to compete against females. Steele tweeted, "Unfair to women, and the irony of this decision being made during Women's History Month, the hypocrisy continues." Sports journalist Michelle Tafoya also criticized the decision, saying, quote, "Transgender women have a Y chromosome. Biological women do not. There are genetic differences. Women's sports needs to be protected." Now, both Sage and Tafoya were joined in their opposition by the Independent Council on Women's Sports, an organization dedicated to protecting female athletes.
Yeah, Sage has always, had a lot to say, and she's been, pretty controversial as of late. So I'm really surprised that she's putting herself in this space. I thought she would just kind of quiet down and sit at the anchor. But look, to some degree, we've talked about this before. I'm not saying that I agree, but I do question, is there an unfair advantage biologically? And I know you and I at this desk have gone back and forth because, there's been, high school track meets and other sports where transgender males want to, show up and be a part of female sports, and I'm just questioning biologically would there still be an advantage. You said there's research going on that states otherwise.
Yeah.
I just have a hard time believing that, especially when you're talking about powerlifting.
Yeah, well, you're referring to the case of the trans girls, the black trans girls in Connecticut, and that case is still making its way through the courts. But this is an issue that raises a lot of eyebrows for a lot of folks in terms of whether or not trans athletes have any sort of physical advantage when it comes to competing. Now, there is no decisive or definitive research out there that says that they do. And so far, there have been a number of judges that haven't reached that conclusion either. Cooper, the trans man in this particular case, placed third in the 2022 AMP Classic Open Nationals, twice won the Women's Raw 198 Open, and finished 4th in the USPA National Championship. And so there are folks that say, well, if there's a biological advantage, then wouldn't folks like Cooper win every time? Or at least win the majority of the times, and that doesn't seem to be the case. That issue also came up in the Connecticut case, where the black trans girls, they didn't win every race either, right?
Well, maybe they're just not good runners, and maybe this person just isn't a good lifter. But I do think, for me, the debate stands firm that, if there is a biological advantage, then it should be debated. It should be discussed. All right. Michigan lawmakers have passed a bill to expand civil rights protections to the LGBTQ community, which would make it illegal to fire or evict someone based on their sexual orientation. Now, Governor Whitmer is expected to sign the measure into law when it reaches her desk. The legislation receives support from 8 Republicans and will codify protections from discrimination based on sexual orientation in employment, housing, and other areas. 8 Republicans joined Democrats in voting for the legislation, which comes as Republican-led states have passed a slew of bills that limit the freedoms of LGBTQ Americans.
RuPaul is calling out state bills that target drag performances, claiming that they are a distraction from more important issues. In an Instagram video, the RuPaul's Drag Race host urged his 4 million followers to register to vote and remove politicians who focus on easy targets instead of substantive problems. The message came after Tennessee became the first state to ban drag performances seen by children and gender-affirming health care for transgender youth. Now, RuPaul called drag queens the, quote, Marines of the queer movement, and encouraged people to use their vote to elect leaders with real solutions.
RuPaul has been, he has become, if not is, the granddaddy of, this movement, this drag queen. I mean, when you think of drag, you think of RuPaul, his success, the success of the TV program, the success of the drag queens who have appeared on the TV program. So if there's going to be some sort of authority to push this message through, that this ain't bothering you, this ain't hurting you, and I have a tendency to agree that I feel it's artistry. I've said this before at the desk. Every time I attend a show, hasn't been too often because I haven't had time, I have a good time.
Yeah.
And it's a girls' night out, and I just think the artistry and the passion behind what these queens do is amazing, and that's where I'm gonna leave it.
Yeah, you're right. It's an artistic, it's an art form, and it's also important to note the history of drag performances in the LGBTQ community. Once upon a time when our brothers and sisters were dying of HIV/AIDS, in the 80s and 90s, in particular, we know that there were a lot of drag queens that were performing to raise money, to be able to provide the care that folks needed, when they were dying. And so, drag queens have played a very important role in advancing LGBTQ rights in this country. And big ups to Governor Whitmer here in Michigan, for passing the Equality Act equivalent here in Michigan. That's a big deal. That's legislation that we can't pass in Congress, but here in Michigan they're able to do it, especially in the face of so much anti-LGBTQ hate that's afoot.
And you gotta say, you can get some great makeup tips. Man, oh man, they know how to put it on, baby. That's
right.
for sure.
Contour. That's right. Coming up, learning her story, civil rights icon Angela Davis gets some shocking information.
It blew me away too. We'll tell you what she discovered when looking up her ancestry. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report.
Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. Now, a new USA Today Ipsos poll has found that 56% of Americans agree with a positive definition of the term woke, understanding it to mean to be informed, educated on, and aware of social injustices.
39% had a negative association with the word and understood it to mean to be overly politically correct and police others' words. The poll also discovered Americans are divided on whether they consider it an insult to be described as woke, with 40% calling it an insult and 32% calling it a compliment.
That's right. The discussion around the term comes as GOP politicians wage a so-called war on wokeness. Leading the charge, that's right, you guessed it, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has previously declared that the Sunshine State is where woke goes to die.
I'm gonna need these GOP folks to leave it alone. I mean, listen, brothers, sisters, soulmates in our community, amongst our conversations, in our homes, in our kitchens, you know what woke means, and don't let Ken and Karen throw you off that square and stop you from knowing what that has always meant in our community. It means to be aware of what's happening in and around you. And it's also not necessarily strictly for race relations. It's about being aware of who you are and how you want to move in this world and how you want to contribute to the culture and the community, aside from being woke. Reminding you that we're in a strange land at times, and we don't run things, and we got to code switch and make things happen, and you just have to stay aware of those. So it means so much more, and this whole woke debate being brought into the mainstream, it's being whitewashed, and it really ticks me off a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, we know what woke means.
You're right, and there's anti-woke legislation that is making its way across the country. We mentioned, Florida, where the governor says that's where woke goes to die, but there are plenty of states across the country that are taking their cues from Ron DeSantis, and they are implementing their own anti-black legislation, anti-LGBTQ legislation, and they are creating environments that are hostile learning environments for Black kids and LGBTQ kids in schools, and so we can't sleep on this.
Yeah.
This isn't just going to go away by itself. To me, to be woke is essentially to be conscious, right? And we should all be in the business of heightening our consciousness, not bringing it down, and certainly not bringing it down to the gutter.
Hence the hashtag Stay Woke.
That's right.
And there's all different elements of staying conscious. It's not just a racial thing. Don't let them take you off your square. And speaking of woke, ain't nobody more woke
That's right.
than activist Angela Davis, one of the wokest Black Americans of our time. Of course, she was shocked to learn that she descended from a passenger on the Mayflower, one of the first settlers in America. Henry Louis Gates Jr., he's doing amazing work. Host of the PBS program, Finding Your Roots. You need to really check it out. It's amazing. Revealed Davis's ancestry during Black History Month. Now, Davis's 10th, he did it on Black History Month. Davis's 10th great-grandfather, tracing back through her father's white father, Murphy Jones, was William Brewster, born in England about 1570. Davis's first response was, "No, I can't believe this. My ancestors did not come here on the Mayflower." She later stated, quote, "I always imagine my ancestors as the people who were enslaved. It makes me even more committed to struggling for a better world."
I mean, that's an incredible
Talk
story.
About being taken aback.
And that's why, Henry Louis Gates' program on PBS, Finding Your Roots,
it's so good.
It really is meeting the moment, right? It's reminding us
good.
how interconnected we all are, right? And so, for people out there throwing up the Black Power fist, right? For those that are steeped in the history of racial injustice and the struggle for racial justice, I count Angela Davis, as one of the headliners in that movement, right? One of the leaders in the movement. If she can be pleasantly surprised about her history, then imagine what we'll find when we look into our own history, right? And imagine what some of these folks that are anti-woke, some of the folks that don't want to teach Black history in schools, imagine their shock when they discover that, you got Black people, you got Black blood running through your veins too.
Yeah, we are all a mixed bag. There's just no doubt about it. If you just look at our history and how we were brought over here, how we were treated, how we were sexually abused, and how it all started in the first place, and I've got white family members who are actually blood, and so there's nothing wrong for me there. It's just that understand that we're all connected, and can we use that connection to, again, find some way to get along and just appreciate the differences. It's okay to be different. I just can't disrespect you and dismiss you and act as if you don't exist or you don't matter, because you are so very different. When you have stories like this, when it proves that we all pretty much come from a mixed bag, what are we going to do? How are we going to use that to better our existence with one another? Because ain't nobody going nowhere.
And I think that's the point. When you know better, do better.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a lot of folks out there that don't want to do better.
Yeah.
Right? And so, we have to summon them to a higher level of consciousness. And hopefully news like what we bring to folks every single day helps to do that.
Yeah, I got a cousin just as fair skinned with red hair. Love her to death.
Right? And I have family members that are also,
That's
white
right.
and Latino.
That's
and,
right.
We're a mixed bag. One human family. Well, in HBCU news, the HBCU Library Alliance and Harvard Library have announced a project to sustain and deepen capacity for the digitization, discovery, and preservation of African American history collections held in HBCU libraries and archives across the United States. The 4-year, $6 million project aims to develop strategies and methods for HBCU libraries and archives to scale up the processing and digitization of their collections. The partnership will add to work that already exists in HBCU Library Alliance's digital library. According to Sandra Phoenix, who is the executive director of the HBCU Library Alliance, the collaboration with Harvard will provide an opportunity to share HBCU stories, complete the historical record, augment American history, and create new scholarship to make these very valuable stories known to a broader public.
All right, for the month of March, Black History is Her Story in celebration of Women's History Month. And today we shine a light on 4 women of color game changers. Another history in the making here.
That's right. Time Magazine recently announced its 2023 Women of the Year, and 4 of them were Black women. They include Angela Bassett, who wrote on her Instagram, quotes, "The extraordinary thing about being a part of history is that through your accomplishments, you represent the intention and action towards change and the march towards a brighter, more equitable and inclusive future." That's what Bassett wrote on her Instagram about the honor. And then Ramala Ali, who is a professional boxer, fashion model, and philanthropist. She's also on the list.
Also on the list, Anil Franco, Brazil's racial equality minister. The leader unexpectedly entered the world of politics following the assassination of her sister. And last but not least, Quinta Brunson. She's having a heck of a run right now as the creator of Abbott Elementary.
That's right. There's some bad sisters.
Yeah.
Some bad sisters.
Yeah.
And an intergenerational cohort of bad sisters.
Yeah, and it really reflects a whole, international landscape of women of color who are making a difference globally. And I can't wait to dig into that article and read a little bit more about the ones who I'm not as familiar with, to just help continue to encourage and influence. And, I like to use their stories to kind of, temper myself and keep me on track and make sure I'm doing what, I'm out here to do, what I'm expected to do, based upon the legacy that I'm living in, and just be that change. Just be that change.
That's right. That's
amazing.
right. It's pretty incredible.
Up next, coming to Eminem's defense, my homie.
We'll tell you why rappers across the industry are rushing to take up for the rapper. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report.
I don't know about that.
Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report. All right, let's get into some royal news. Prince Harry and Meghan's children, Archie and Lilibet, have been given their official royal titles as Prince and Princess. This is according to the family's website.
Yeah, now the change occurred after Lilibet's christening, where she was referred to as Princess Lilibet for the first time following the 1917 letters patent established by King George V. Now, even though Prince Harry and Meghan have stepped down as senior members of the royal family, their children are still entitled to their royal titles.
Good for them. Good for them. I mean, I think there are a number of folks that are asking the question, like, okay, so are you wanting to be a part of the royal family? Or you want to step back from the royal family? You know, do you still want some of the benefits that come along with being a royal, or are you willing to sort of leave those benefits behind? Look, the fact of the matter is that, you know, these kids' grandfather is still King Charles III. He is the king of the Commonwealth, and nothing changes that. So whether Harry and Meghan step back or step forward, they are still a part of the royal family. And I think a lot of us we want to see that they're not being treated any differently than anybody else. And you know, according to, you know, Prince Harry and Princess and Meghan, they stepped back, you know, because they weren't being treated fairly. They were not being treated as, you know, other senior members of the royal family. And so, you know, I don't know. I just hope King Charles gets it together, because his coronation is coming up, you know, and, you know, we don't want his coronation, you know, to look like, a Medea family dinner or something like that.
Well, I agree with you. You can't have it both ways, but if you're inviting these titles on your children, or you're putting these titles on your children, are you inviting some of the same controversies? Are you inviting some of the same pressures? Are you inviting some of the same obstacles and prejudices that you left the palace about and over? So are you kind of opening them up to that? I don't know, but at the same time, I can see how they're entitled, and I can also see how that would better position and maybe posture them in the world as they grow up and mature. But you can't have it both ways. I just hope that these titles don't come and haunt them in the ways that the titles have haunted their dad and their mom. Or, you know, or displace their dad and their mom, if you will.
Well, I would love for Princess Meghan and Prince Harry to, you know, come on over to FOXSOUL's Black Report, have a conversation.
Boy, please. Janet Jackson fans can look forward to another glimpse into, if you can get that to happen.
I'm just saying, I believe it's possible.
We're going to have another glimpse into Janet Jackson's life, as Lifetime and A&E networks have announced the green light of Janet Jackson Family First, following the success of her self-titled limited docuseries, which was fascinating. Now, the upcoming series will continue her story as she embarks upon her 2023 Together Again tour and reunites her family band with brother Randy Jackson after 40 years. Janet and Randy are executive producers, and they are currently filming the series.
Boom.
Yeah, that's a good look.
Get it.
Well, I will say this, the documentary followed her for like 5 years. That was amazing. Yeah. And I think it was a real honest look. She was still very guarded about the last marriage, and I think there might be something in place where she, she can't talk about it. I still want to see the son. She hasn't really revealed him too much, but I was really fascinated to learn that out of all the brothers, she was close to Mike, but her and Randy are like buddy, very, very, very close. I think he's a part of her management team, and as you can see, they're serving as EPs for this project, and it's going to be interesting to see how she gets all of them together, because they've been kind of like in their own lanes for a very long time, and feel some kind of way about each other every now and again.
You know, I feel some kind of way about, the documentary, in that I don't think that she talked enough about Michael. I feel like she touched on Michael, in the documentary.
Well, that was her moment.
But I don't feel like we learned enough about just sort of like her.
What else you need to know about Michael Jackson?
About her. It's not about Michael Jackson. It's about her relationship with Michael and her point of view on, a lot of the accusations. Clearly there's a biopic that's in the works right now on Michael's life, right? How does she feel about that? We just saw, Chris Rock has been in the news, for making a joke during his recent stand-up comedy special on Netflix that offended members of the Jackson family.
I think she touched on Michael just enough.
And so I'm just saying that in her series, in her documentary, her second installment, I would hope that she goes a little bit deeper. I think the people want to know.
I think she touched on Michael just enough to still allow that documentary to be about her and her moment.
I think it could still be about her and her moment, but I think she could go a little bit deeper.
She already has.
You know, because think about it. Between Michael and Janet, they're probably the biggest superstars, certainly of that family and of a generation, right? And so I can understand her privacy and everything, but I'm just saying, people want to know. People want to know. That's all. Well, people know this now. They know that Tiger Woods' ex-girlfriend is suing the athlete for $30 million after alleging that he tricked her into leaving their shared home and then locking her out. What? According to documents obtained by TMZ, Erica Herman and Woods broke up last fall. That's when Herman alleges that Woods cooked up a scheme to get her out of his Florida home, violating an oral tenancy agreement. Herman's team says Tiger's people had her pack up a suitcase for a fake vacation and drove her to the airport. Once at the airport, she says they told her she was locked out of the house and couldn't go back. Herman is also asking a judge to declare the NDA she signed unenforceable. She says federal law allows her to speak out in cases involving sexual misconduct or harassment, but she hasn't specified what he allegedly did.
No, he didn't conjure up nothing. He didn't cook up nothing. He planned this thing. When you have $1.1 billion, you make magic
He said,
happen.
this is what we gonna do.
This is what we gonna do.
Send her to the airport with a suitcase, a one-way ticket.
I'm going to plan a solo vacation. While you gone, I'm gonna change the locks. When you land, I'm gonna have my lawyers meet you at the airport to let you know that it's over, and we gonna keep it moving. And I can understand why she's suing about the money, and I can also understand why she wants this NDA out of here so she can talk about the dirt. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure that that's gonna happen. He might give her a little something to go away, but it sounds like that relationship has been over, and he just had to make it do what it do to make sure it was over upon her return. Let me tell you, Tiger's cold.
Tiger's cold. That was cold-blooded, Tiger. I don't know, Tiger. You over here, you inspiring some soulmates.
And his
Tiger.
preference is his preference, but I'm hoping as he moves on and maybe finds another partner, maybe she would be a different kind of lady. And I bet you he wouldn't.
Different in what way? In what way, Courtney?
It appears as though he has a preference, but maybe it's time for something a little different. I'm gonna just leave it at that. The Los Angeles Lakers commission, I bet you that won't happen like that. It wouldn't. Commissioned a custom pendant to commemorate LeBron James surpassing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the most career points in NBA history. Now, the solid gold pendant is diamond encrusted and features design elements from James's career, including a roaring lion crowned with the 19 All-Stars LJ logo, numerals for his numbers 23 and 6, and logos of all three teams that he's played for. Now, the pendant comes with a signature infinity link chain fastened with the NBA logo set in diamonds.
What'd that look like?
Beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah, it is really gorgeous. And look, this man is the best of the best, the cream of the crop. The argument, the debate will always continue for ages to come. Who is the best to ever do it? He's one of the best. He deserves it all. You don't care whether you like Bron or not, stats, this Michael Jordan, this, that. Give it all to him, and give it to him now while he's still in his prime.
Well, let me just say, I believe that love is in the details. And that piece of jewelry clearly has a lot of details because it's being given to him with so much love. I mean, when you visit, Los Angeles, it is clear that is LeBron's town. People love LeBron James. They love the Lakers. They love the Clippers too. But, the love for
if you say so.
For LeBron James, is palpable. And so, I'm so glad that he has sort of a token of, I think, the love that so many Angelinos also feel for him. Not just Lakers fans.
Okay.
Everybody. Melly Mel's recent comments on Eminem's ranking on the Billboard list of top 50 rappers of all time sparked controversy, with some rappers defending Eminem's talent and others agreeing with Melly Mel's criticism. Chuck D sided with Melly Mel, while 50 Cent, Fat Joe, and Kevin Gates defended Eminem's skills as a rapper. Eminem's impact on the hip-hop genre is highlighted by 50 Cent, who argued that the culture wouldn't be what it is today without him. The debate over the rankings of rappers on the list continues.
Now, I'm not going to go that far, 50, and say that hip hop or rap music wouldn't be rap music.
Oh, that was a bridge too far for you?
That was a bit too far. Like, come on, 50. I got you. I know that's your boy, that's your peeps, but come on, 50. But look, I do think it speaks to the diversity of rap music in regards to where it started, the hood, the house that it's, the party, the reason, and the folks who started it. Do I believe that Eminem got a little extra stank because he was white? Yes, but at the same time, his lyrics are ridiculous and his delivery is unmatched. So I'm gonna give him that. I understand the argument though. If Eminem was black, would he just be another regular old, rapper who can rap? But can we all just get along in regards to this moment? It's 50 years. The genre has survived. Today is the day we lost Biggie back in 26 years ago. Yeah. A lot of conversation about that today. But these type of debates and arguments, I think, are going to be long-standing because, it's just such a rich, diverse genre.
But you know what? I mean, I actually can see where 50's coming from in terms of hip hop not being the same without Eminem. I mean, from an acceptance standpoint, the fact that the hip hop community accepted Eminem as a bona fide rapper, right? I think it says something about the expansiveness of hip hop as an art form. And so in that way, I could see where 50 was headed with it. You still say no?
Take Eminem out of hip hop and hip hop would be okay. He's better because he's in it, but it'd be okay if he wasn't.
Still ahead, the winner of a recent Michelin Award is a black chef. They're a black chef.
Yes, and she has an amazing story. We'll tell you about this West African chef and what got her the highest honor in cooking. We'll be right back. A self-trained chef from West Africa wins the coveted Michelin Award. Of the 44 new Michelin stars handed out, Georgiana Viu is the only one awarded to a woman working single-handedly. Yeah, becoming a chef was a fallback plan for Viu, who went to France in 1999 with dreams of becoming an interpreter. Life's complications forced her to change direction, and her second passion, cooking, took over. She was awarded a Michelin star for her cuisine at a restaurant in southwestern France. Viu describes her cuisine as a mix of French Mediterranean perfumed with notes recalling her home country of Benin. I'm Courtney Hicks.
And I'm Nicordelai Corte. Until next time, soulmates, stay lifted.